They thought she was the perfect target, just a quiet black girl they could shove toward a snarling, rabid dog behind the school. But the moment her back hit the fence, something shifted. The bullies expected screams. Instead, they watched her step forward and do something so terrifying it wiped the smirk off Chase Weston's face in seconds. In 5 minutes, the hunted became the one they should have feared all along, because ignorance has consequences. And today, they picked the wrong girl to corner. The rooftop of Riverside High's abandoned K-9 training wing always felt wrong, even in daylight. The metal railings rattled in the wind. The faded extreme danger signs swung like dead warnings no one bothered to read anymore, and the steel ventilation pipes pulsed with echoes from the floors below. It was the kind of place teachers avoided, students whispered about, and bullies used like their own private arena. And that's exactly why Chase Weston chose it. The final bell had barely stopped ringing when Zuri stepped out into the hallway, clutching her notebook and trying to disappear behind the stream of students. She wasn't late, she wasn't lost, she wasn't doing anything wrong, she was simply visible. And in Riverside High, being a quiet black girl who kept to herself made her a target. "Hey, Zuri!" Chase called out, too loudly, his voice slicing through the crowd. His Letterman jacket, bright orange, with the bold white R patch, glowed like a flag of entitlement. Mason and Troy flanked him, phones already in hand, because nothing Chase did happened without an audience. Zuri hesitated. She always hesitated around him. "I think you dropped this in chemistry." Chase dangled a small keychain with a blue tassel, something that looked like it could belong to her. "Pretty sure it's yours," he added, stepping closer. It wasn't hers. She knew it. He knew it. But her refusal would become an attitude problem and his excuse to escalate. So she nodded once, softly, and followed him. He led her up 2 flights of stairs, past the dusty trophy cases, through the heavy fire door that only opened one way, and up the final metal staircase to the rooftop. Zuri's chest tightened at the sudden gust of wind that hit her when Chase shoved the door open. The place felt abandoned, forgotten, unwelcoming, perfect for whatever Chase wanted. "Over there," he said, pointing toward the far end of the rooftop where the old K-9 training cages sat in a row. "You must have dropped it earlier. Go check." Zuri stepped cautiously across the cracked concrete. She could hear metal clinking coming from the cages, but brushed it off as normal rooftop noise. She pressed her hands against her skirt to calm herself. Something about this felt off, but she didn't want trouble. She never did. Then she heard it. Click. The unmistakable sound of a heavy lock sliding into place. Zuri spun around. Chase stood at the door. Metal chain wrapped around the handle, locking them all in. Mason laughed behind him. Troy lifted his phone higher, framing the shot. Her stomach dropped. "You didn't really come up here for a keychain, did you?" Zuri whispered. Chase smirked. "Relax. We just want to show you something cool." He started walking toward the cages. That's when Zuri froze. Inside the largest cage was a massive Belgian Malinois, pacing, panting, shaking the steel bars with every frustrated stride. Its eyes were wild, unfocused, its muzzle scratched from trying to chew through metal. A thick collar marked with warning tags wrapped around its muscular neck. "Meet Delta," Chase said proudly, like he was showing off a sports car. "Campus security keeps him up here while they renovate the new facility. Rumor is he's gone a little rabid." The dog growled violently, rattling the door. Zuri took a step back. "Why would you bring me here?" Chase shrugged. "Curiosity. Wanted to see how people react when they're, let's say, pushed." His hand reached toward the cage latch. "Chase, stop." Zuri's voice cracked with genuine fear. "You don't know what that dog is trained to do." "Oh, I know exactly what it's trained to do." Chase leaned closer, whispering knowingly into the metal bars. "I hear they use dogs like this in federal operations. They don't just bite, they end things." The cage door creaked as he unhooked the latch. "Don't," Zuri pleaded. But he already had. The door swung open. Delta exploded out like a missile fired from a cannon, claws scraping against concrete, as it locked eyes on the first moving target, Zuri. She stumbled backward, almost tripping over the faded yellow warning line, her breath catching in her throat. Mason's voice cracked with adrenaline as he zoomed in on her face. They wanted the fear. They wanted the panic. They wanted the video. "Back up, Zuri," Chase mocked. "Sign says, extreme danger. Don't you know how to read?" Delta barreled forward, jaws open, saliva flying. Zuri's back hit the cold metal frame of the danger sign so hard it clanged behind her. Mason shouted, "Bro, this is insane." Troy whispered, "Dude, is it actually gonna bite her?" Delta launched into the air, teeth bared. Then everything stopped. Not the wind, not the camera, not the moment, just the dog. Its muscles locked mid-stride. Its paws skidded across concrete as it redirected its entire body, not toward Zuri, but away from her. Instead of attacking, Delta dropped low, ears pinned back, staring at her with an intensity that wasn't aggression, almost recognition. Zuri's eyes widened. Chase's face twisted in confusion. The dog backed up one step, then another, then lowered itself onto its haunches. Its breathing shifted from savage to controlled, as if it had been given an order no one heard. "What? What the hell?" Mason muttered, lowering his phone. Troy whispered, "Why is it acting like that?" Delta wasn't attacking. Delta was yielding. To her. Chase's confusion morphed into frustration. This wasn't the reaction he planned. This wasn't the video he wanted. He needed fear, screams, chaos, not whatever this was. "Why did it stop?" he snapped. "What did you do to it?" Zuri didn't answer. She couldn't. She was too stunned to even breathe. Chase stepped forward again, waving his arms angrily. "No, seriously, why did it stop? Why did it look at you like that?" His voice cracked. Mason swallowed hard. "Chase, bro, why did it stop? Just because it saw her." The rooftop suddenly felt colder, heavier, like something bigger, far bigger was happening beneath the surface. And Chase, humiliated in front of his friends and his own camera, clenched his jaw so tightly the veins in his neck bulged. "That's it," he growled. "If the freak dog won't scare her, I'll make sure something else does." Chase's anger simmered, boiling into something reckless. Whatever stopped Delta wouldn't stop him, and he was determined to force Zuri into a danger she couldn't walk away from. The rooftop air turned sharp, so sharp it felt like it could slice through skin. The cage door slammed against the concrete wall with a clang that echoed across the open sky, louder and more violent than anything Zuri had ever heard. Delta's growl vibrated in the metal railings, low and primal, a sound that belonged on a battlefield, not a school. Zuri staggered back, breath hitching, heart thundering. She could feel the edges of panic clawing up her throat. Every instinct told her to run, scream, scramble for the door, do something, but her body didn't move. Her feet stayed rooted, frozen by fear or fate. She didn't know which. Delta lunged again. Chase flinched. Mason cursed under his breath, and Troy's phone camera jerked wildly as he tried not to drop it. "Bro, this thing is actually insane," Troy shouted, voice cracking. "It's gonna tear her apart," Mason added. But Zuri did not run. She didn't twist, didn't duck, didn't shield her face. She simply stood there, trembling, breathing fast and shallow, eyes locked on the blur of muscle, and teeth hurtling toward her. Something inside her, not bravery, not calm, but something older, deeper, refused to move. Delta skid to a stop inches from her knees. The dog's nostrils flared, and instead of ripping into her, it sniffed. Once, twice. Slow, deliberate, confused. Its growl evaporated like mist. Chase stared, stunned. His voice sputtered somewhere between frustration and disbelief. "Why? Why is it smelling her?" Mason zoomed in with his phone. "Bro, this isn't normal. Shouldn't it be like chewing her face off or something?" "Shut up, Mason," Chase snapped. "Just film." But even he sounded unsure. Zuri lifted a trembling hand, not toward the dog, but near her own chest, instinctively protecting her heart from the impact she expected, but never came. Delta pressed its snout forward again, sniffing her fingers gently, almost delicately. Zuri froze. Delta's breath was hot against her skin, warm and startlingly calm for a dog that had been raging seconds earlier. Its posture softened, shoulders lowering as if someone invisible had touched the back of its neck and stroked it into serenity. "Is it broken?" Troy muttered. "No," Mason whispered. "It's listening." "Listening to what?" Delta stepped closer, nudging its head into Zuri's palm. And then, before any of them could process it, the massive dog lowered its entire body to the ground. First, the elbows buckled, then the hind legs folded. The dog rested its head on its paws and let out a soft, fragile whine that rippled through the air like an apology. A federal-trained attack dog, submitting to a girl no one noticed an hour ago. What the... Chase staggered backward. "Why is it doing that?" Troy's phone was shaking now, but he didn't dare look away from the screen. Dude, it's bowing to her." Zuri's breath steadied not completely, but enough that her panic shifted into something else. Something strange. Something familiar. The dog's submission ignited a flicker of recognition deep in her chest. She'd seen this before, heard this before, lived this before. But that was a memory she'd buried long ago, one she never expected to face on a school rooftop. No, this is wrong," Chase stammered, rushing toward them again. "Get up, Delta. Attack." Delta's ears twitched in annoyance but remained obediently on the ground, eyes locked on Zuri, as if she were the only anchor in a world that had tilted off balance. Chase shouted louder. "I said, attack. Go." Delta growled not at Zuri, but at him. The sound was thunderous, deeper than before, vibrating in the steel beams and sending a pulse through the soles of their shoes. Chase stumbled back, face twisting in shock and humiliation. Mason sucked in a breath. "Chase, bro. It's protecting her." "Shut up!" Chase roared, voice cracking. Zuri swallowed hard, still feeling the tremor in her fingertips. She didn't understand why Delta was responding this way, not fully, but instinct whispered something she didn't want to acknowledge. Dogs like Delta didn't choose their responses. They recognized them. A training command. A scent, a handler's bloodline. Something. "Zuri," Mason whispered, his voice trembling in fascination instead of fear. "What did you do to Delta?" Zuri didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mind was too busy spinning through locked-away memories she'd promised herself she'd never revisit. Delta nudged closer, pressing its weight against her shin, a gesture of full allegiance. Troy lowered his phone an inch, forgetting the video entirely. "Is she, like, a dog whisperer or something?" Mason elbowed him. "No, idiot. This dog doesn't whisper. This dog kills." Chase's humiliation curdled into something darker rage. Ugly, personal rage. Rage that tightened his fists and turned his ears red and made his voice tremble not with fear but with wounded pride. "You think this is funny?" he spat, stepping closer. "You think you can embarrass me like this?" Zuri finally looked up. Her eyes were still wide with shock, but behind them was something steady, something unnervingly calm, a sharp contrast to Chase's unraveling composure. "I didn't embarrass you," she said softly. "The dog did." Chase's jaw clicked. "No, you did. You made it act weird. You made it ignore me. You made it ruin everything." Delta rose halfway, growling low at the shift in Chase's tone. "Oh, don't start with me again," Chase barked at the dog. "You're supposed to listen to people, you stupid." Delta snapped its jaws so loudly the sound echoed across the rooftop. Chase jumped back, face flushing crimson. Mason whispered the words none of them wanted to say aloud. "It's defending her." The rooftop fell silent except for the whistle of wind and the soft, rhythmic breaths of the dog pressed against Zuri's leg. Chase's humiliation burned hotter and hotter until it spilled over, twisting his expression into something reckless. "You know what?" he snarled. "I'm done playing around. If Delta won't scare you, fine. I'll make sure something else will." His hand tightened around the metal handle of the equipment locker. Let's see if you're brave without your little mutt lying at your feet." Chase's fury had eclipsed fear. Whatever mercy Delta had shown would not soften him. If anything, it pushed him toward a danger even Zuri didn't expect. The wind on the rooftop grew harsher, sweeping across the concrete like the breath of something ancient and angry. Metal pipes clanged together in sharp bursts, each impact echoing off the brick walls and adding to the rising tension that gripped the space. The sky above was shifting clouds, moving fast, light fading, as if the world itself sensed that something irreversible was about to happen. Zuri didn't move. Delta stood locked at her side, muscles taut but still, every breath steady, waiting for her signal even though she hadn't given one. Chase could not accept that. Humiliation burned through him hotter than fear. His ego fragile, inflated, desperate, twisted into something ugly. The sight of Delta lowering itself to Zuri had carved a wound in him he didn't know how to handle, and wounded men with power do stupid things. He stormed forward, one hand reaching for Zuri's arm. "Get away from that dog! You're doing something to it!" The moment his fingers stretched toward her, Delta snapped. A roar ripped from its throat so deep, so violent, so raw that Mason and Troy, watching from behind the door window, flinched and nearly dropped their phones. The sound wasn't a bark. It wasn't even a warning. It was a promise of violence if Chase took one more step. Chase froze, his foot mid-stride, arm hanging awkwardly as the dog's growl vibrated through his bones. He tried to play it off with bravado, but his voice cracked betrayingly. "Call it off! Zuri! What the hell? Control it!" "I'm not doing anything," she whispered, still stunned herself. "Bullshit," Chase spat. "It didn't listen to anyone until you showed up. So do whatever it is you're doing to make it stop." Delta stepped forward, placing itself fully between Zuri and Chase, shoulder muscles bulging beneath its coat. The message was clear: touch her and lose your arm. Chase looked from the dog to the girl, his breath accelerating. His eyes darted around the rooftop toward the danger signs, the open cages, the cameras he knew were recording. Every angle showed him losing control, losing dominance, losing the scene he meant to orchestrate. He snapped. "No way, you're just some nobody. What are you? Some animal freak? Some witch?" His voice rose to a near shriek. "Why is it protecting you?" Zuri shook her head. "I don't know." Delta growled again, louder, deeper, illustrating that Chase's tone was unacceptable. Chase tried a different tactic. Brute force. He crouched, extending his hand toward Delta, planning to grab its collar and yank it away. Bad idea. The instant his fingers neared the dog's fur, Delta lunged not to attack, but to block. Its body slammed forward, paws scraping concrete, teeth bared with ferocity so pure that Chase stumbled backward and nearly fell. "Stop!" Zuri blurted. But what happened next wasn't a plea. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even intentional. Her voice shifted sharp, clipped, authoritative, shaped by muscle memory she didn't know she still possessed. "Platz." The German word shot through the air like lightning. Delta obeyed instantly. The dog's entire body dropped flat to the ground, head down, paws extended, chest pressed against the concrete. A perfect, drilled-into-the-bone submission command. The rooftop froze. Chase's mouth fell open. Mason and Troy, watching through the glass, went silent. Even Zuri's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the animal lying before her, completely submissive, not just calm, but waiting for its next command. What did I just say?" she whispered to herself, horrified by her own voice. Chase heard it. He understood it, but he didn't want to understand it. He stepped back once, twice, as if distance could protect him from the reality forming in front of him. Then he spoke the line that would haunt him for the rest of the day. "What the hell is she?" His voice trembled so hard that even he heard the fear in it. A federal-trained dog had just obeyed her. Not him, not security. Her. Zuri. The girl he dragged up here expecting to terrify. Zuri's hands shook. She hadn't spoken German since she was a little girl. Since before her life changed. before she locked those memories away. But the dog responded as if it had known her command all along, as if some invisible thread still existed between her and the world she left behind. Chase's shock mutated quickly into something darker. No longer fear. Not humiliation. Opportunity. He straightened his jacket, jaw clenching, brain working overtime to turn this disaster into leverage. If he couldn't embarrass her with fear, he would embarrass her with suspicion. If he couldn't break her physically, he would break how people saw her. He jabbed a finger toward her, voice rising. You just gave a command in German. A command that only handlers use. You know what that means, right? You've been trained. You've been hiding something. Zuri shook her head again. That's not... Oh, it is, Chase hissed. You're not innocent. You're dangerous. You're some kind of federal freak, aren't you? That's why the dog listened. That's why you're acting weird. You've been lying to everyone. That's not true. Chase smirked, stepping closer now that Delta was still pinned to the ground. You think anyone's gonna believe you over me? Over the captain of the varsity team? Over the Weston family? Please. His voice sharpened like a blade. I'm about to flip this entire situation on its head. If you're not the victim, then you're the threat. Zuri's heart pounded, not from fear of the dog, but from the realization of what Chase could do with his twisting of truth. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the kind that had ruined other students' lives long before hers. You planned this, she whispered, horrified. Chase's grin widened. And now I'm going to finish it. He stepped back, lifting his chin, raising his voice for the cameras already pointed their way. Everyone listen up, he shouted, making sure Mason and Troy caught every word. Zuri just ordered that dog to the ground. She's controlling it. She's the threat here. I'm about to prove it. Delta growled again, but Zuri barely heard it. Her pulse hammered in her ears, dread sinking deep. Chase was about to turn her life upside down. Determined to reclaim control of the rooftop and the narrative, Chase prepared to escalate, ready to twist Zuri's unexpected command into a weapon that would destroy her reputation. The metal door to the rooftop slammed open with a violent bang, the sound ricocheting across the concrete like a warning shot. Chase jerked his head toward it, eyes widening not in fear, but in calculation. He saw shapes moving in the stairwell shadows, students climbing fast, breathless, drawn by the shouting that had echoed through the halls like an alarm. Zuri exhaled shakily. Delta remained flat on the ground, where she had unknowingly commanded it, obedient, watchful, still positioned protectively between her and Chase. She could hear the distant chatter growing louder, footsteps, whispers, phones already recording. Chase's mind snapped into action. He didn't see danger. He saw an audience, and with an audience came power. He straightened, threw his shoulders back, and pointed dramatically at Zuri, just as the first 3 students emerged onto the rooftop. "Help!" he screamed with a voice so theatrical it bordered on pathetic. She opened the cage. She told the dog to attack me." The newcomers froze. "What?" a girl gasped, clutching her backpack. "No way," another boy muttered, staring between Zuri and the dog. Chase amplified his fake panic. "Look at it! Look at how it's acting! It went for me first until she used some command or something and took control." Zuri, still pale from shock, stared at him in disbelief. "That's not true. He's lying. Am I?" Chase barked, pushing his fear-shaken voice into a tremor that almost sounded real. "Tell them how you made it lie down. Tell them what command you used." "Go on, say it!" Murmurs rippled through the group. Suspicion sprouted like weeds. "Is she a trainer or something? But why would she open the cage? I heard that dog almost killed someone last year. Why would she mess with it?" Chase seized the moment. He smelled momentum. He staggered backward dramatically, clutching his arm as if it had been mauled. "She told it to go after me. Why else would I be backing away? Why would I be shouting for help?" Zuri opened her mouth, but found no words. No explanation she could give would sound believable, not when Chase delivered his lies with such confident precision. Delta lifted its head at Chase's tone, ears pulling back in warning. But it didn't move toward him, not an inch. Instead, It pressed closer to Zuri, reinforcing the exact thing Chase was trying to twist. "See?" Chase yelled, pointing furiously. "It's protecting her. It only listens to her. Why do you think that is?" A few students nodded uneasily. "Yeah, that's weird. How does she even know commands for that dog? I bet she messed with it." The rooftop grew thick with uncertainty, all of it directed toward the girl who hadn't expected any of this. Zuri felt her stomach tighten, her hands trembled. She wasn't afraid of the dog anymore, she was afraid of the narrative forming like storm clouds around her. Chase's voice darkened with smug confidence. "She pretends to be quiet, innocent, whatever, but look at her. She commanded the dog in German. Who does that? Who even knows that?" Gasps, more whispers. Zuri took a step forward. "Chase, stop lying. You know exactly what happened." "Oh, I do." He cut her off sharply. "You tried to make a fool out of me, and when that didn't work, you used that dog to attack. That's not—" "Shut up!" Chase barked, pointing his phone directly at her face now. "Say it again! Tell everyone what you said to make the dog obey." Zuri's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know." "Liar!" Chase roared. The word blasted across the rooftop like a gunshot. But then, another voice cut through the noise. "Yo," a boy near the back muttered slowly, clutching his phone tighter. "Is anyone else watching this?" "What do you mean?" a girl beside him asked. He swallowed hard. "This isn't the beginning. Someone's been live streaming since they followed Chase up here." Silence spread like wildfire. Everyone turned toward him. "Who's streaming?" Chase snapped, throat tightening. The boy flipped his screen around. At the top was the username, @JadenDoesTech, a tech-obsessed freshman known for filming everything. And on his livestream timeline, the timer read, 16:42 live. He had been filming for almost 20 minutes, long before Chase started yelling, long before Zuri said a word, long before the cage opened. "Bro," the boy whispered, voice trembling. "The whole school is watching this live stream." Chase's face drained of color so fast it looked like someone wiped his expression with bleach. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no, turn it off. Give me that phone." But the damage was already done. Jaden hit replay, scrubbing back with a single flick. The rooftop erupted in gasps as the truth filled the screen. Chase unlocking the cage. Chase shoving Zuri backward. Chase laughing. Chase yelling, "Let's see what this dog does when it's hungry." His own words, his own actions, captured in perfect, brutal clarity. "Dude," Mason whispered, horrified. "This angle. It shows everything." Troy stepped backward instinctively, distancing himself from the imploding disaster that was Chase Weston. Chase lunged toward Jaden, but students blocked him instinctively. "Back off, man. Don't touch him. You did this to yourself." The rooftop had turned. The crowd had turned. The power had turned. And Chase felt it slipping through his fingers like sand. His voice cracked violently. "Delete it. All of you delete it. Now." No one moved. Phones remained raised. Eyes remained locked on him. Breaths remained tight. The truth was out. And truth is the one thing Chase Weston never knew how to fight. His entire facade, his dominance, his crafted image, his inherited power collapsed under the weight of the live stream. Zuri didn't speak. She didn't have to. Reality had done it for her. Chase staggered back, eyes wild, realizing something he never thought possible. He was losing control. And worse, he was losing it in front of everyone. Cornered by truth and humiliated before the crowd, Chase's desperation spirals, driving him to escalate in ways far more dangerous than lies. The wind picked up brutally, whipping across the rooftop as if the sky itself wanted to witness what would happen next. Students crowded closer, forming a tight ring around the unfolding chaos, phones raised, voices low, breaths shallow. The air was thick with tension, heavy with the weight of truth that had just detonated through Jaden's live stream. Chase Weston, once untouchable, unshakable, adored, and feared in equal measure, now stood pale, trembling, and exposed in front of an audience he no longer controlled, and he hated it. "This isn't over," he snarled. voice cracking as he pointed directly at Zuri. You think that stupid video means anything? I'll prove you're dangerous. I'll prove you're controlling that dog. He lunged toward her. Zuri didn't even have time to step back. Delta did. The transformation was instantaneous. The submissive, grounded obedience from earlier evaporated in a millisecond. Delta launched upward like a missile, teeth bared, shoulders bulging with raw strength. Its growl ripped through the air with a violence so powerful it made several students scream. Chase stumbled backward, arms flailing as he tripped over his own ego and fear. Delta didn't bite, didn't attack, but the message was unmistakable and unmistakably lethal. Touch her and die. The dog's massive body planted itself in front of Zuri like a living barricade, fangs exposed, saliva dripping, neck muscles pulsing with protective fury. The rooftop erupted. Oh my God! Holy, did you see how fast it moved? It's protecting Zuri. Bro, Chase would have lost his arm. Zuri's breath caught in her chest. She didn't command the dog, she didn't even move. Delta made the decision on its own. Chase scrambled to his feet, eyes wide, panic and humiliation mixing into something unstable. Get that thing away from me. Someone grab it. But no one stepped forward. No one dared. Delta's eyes locked onto Chase, not the crowd, not the students whispering in fear, not the phones recording just Chase. Every hair along the dog's spine stood rigid, forming a sharp ridge of warning. Zuri took an involuntary half-step back, overwhelmed by the intensity of the scene. The dog noticed instantly and pressed closer to her calf, its body forming a shield. Only Chase, only him. Mason swallowed hard. Dude, it's not reacting to anyone else. Troy nodded shakily. Yeah, it's only going psycho at Chase. It's like it knows he's the problem. Chase whipped toward them. Shut up. He tried to step forward again, reaching for the phone someone in the crowd was holding, someone live-streaming his downfall to hundreds of students watching in real time. But Delta exploded again. The dog lunged with a sound that belonged in a war zone, not a school. Its claws scraped deep grooves into the rooftop floor as it hurled itself toward Chase. It didn't bite, it didn't have to. The ferocity alone was enough to make Chase fall backward for the second time in a minute. Students gasped, recoiled, screamed. One voice rose above the chaos. It's not protecting the school. It's protecting her. The words spread like wildfire. Someone repeated them, then another, and another, until the entire crowd felt the truth. Delta's loyalty wasn't random, accidental, or coincidental. It was chosen for her. Chase's face flushed a violent red. The humiliation burned deeper than fear now, deeper than anger. It burrowed into his pride, poisoning him with desperation. He pointed furiously at the dog. Keep that beast away from me! Then stop going near her. Someone shot back from the crowd. Oh, shut up. All of you shut up. Chase roared, voice cracking painfully. But the crowd didn't stop. It grew louder, bolder, uncontrolled. Chase looked frantically around, sweat dripping down his temples despite the cold wind. He saw the students recording, the live stream ticking up views, the comments flashing on screens. The reality he could no longer deny. He had lost the crowd. Completely. Zuri's voice trembled when she spoke. Please. Stop. Just stop. Chase. Her tone wasn't mocking, wasn't superior, wasn't gloating. It was soft, almost pleading. That made it worse. Much worse. The gentleness pierced his ego like a blade. How dare she act like she was above him? How dare she speak as if he needed pity? How dare she look calm while he was falling apart? You think this is funny, don't you? Chase hissed. You think you're special because that thing listens to you? Delta growled so fiercely the metal bars of the old cages vibrated. But Chase didn't care anymore. He had crossed the line from panic to obsession. No, he spat, voice shaking with manic energy. I'll show everyone the truth. I'll show them you're dangerous. I'll show them you're not some victim. You're a freak, a monster. He backed away not toward the exit, but toward the equipment locker bolted to the far wall. The one filled with old training gear, tools, and unbeknownst to the students, something far more dangerous. Zuri felt a fresh wave of dread. "Chase, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just ripped open the locker door. Metal clattered. Students screamed and stumbled back as Chase's hand closed around something long, black, and deadly-looking, a stun baton, industrial grade, the kind used on trained K-9s when they go out of control. Zuri's heart plummeted. Delta's ears shot forward, its entire body tensing like a coiled spring. The rooftop shifted. The air shifted. The situation shifted. Chase stepped out slowly, baton crackling with blue electricity. "You think the dog chose you?" he growled. "Let's test that." Isa, fueled by humiliation and rage, Chase's next move pushes the rooftop into truly dangerous territory far beyond anything a live stream can save. The stun baton cracked to life with a violent ZZZT, sending arcs of blue electricity snapping across its metal prongs. The sound alone sliced through the rooftop like a warning from hell. Students gasped and lurched backward, forming a wider circle, fear spreading through the crowd like a fast-moving current. Chase held the baton awkwardly, not like someone trained, but like someone relying on pure adrenaline and pride to steady trembling hands. "Back up!" he shouted, pointing it wildly at Delta. "All of you, back up!" But he wasn't talking to the crowd. He was talking to the dog. And Delta did not back up. The Malinois stood firm, muscles drawn tight beneath its coat, ears pinned forward, body positioned squarely between Zuri and Chase. No barking, no lunging, no retreat, just unwavering readiness. The kind of readiness that preceded violence. Zuri's pulse hammered in her throat. "Chase, put that down. You don't know how dangerous that is." "I know exactly how dangerous it is," Chase snapped, though fear shimmered beneath the anger in his voice. "And your freak mutt is about to learn too." He stepped closer, brandishing the baton. Delta didn't move. Chase's confidence faltered for half a second. "You hear me?" he barked. "Get back!" Delta lifted its lip, exposing a ridge of razor-sharp teeth. A warning. Chase swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. Students whispered harshly around him. "Oh God, he's gonna get mauled. Someone go get security. He's insane, he's actually insane. Turn off the stun baton, Chase. You're the problem." But their voices only sharpened Chase's humiliation. The spotlight wasn't on him anymore, it was on Zuri, on the dog, on the live stream that showed him unraveling in real time. His rage curled inward, festering, feeding off the fear in the crowd. He jabbed the baton toward Delta. The snap of electricity tore through the air again, louder this time, echoing off the metal cages and concrete walls. Delta still did not flinch. Chase's eyes widened. "That's right," Mason whispered from the crowd, disbelief choking his voice. "It's not scared of him. It's not scared of anything Chase is doing." Troy nodded shakily. "It's like it's trained to take hits, like federal-level training." Zuri's stomach twisted. She knew they were right. Dogs like Delta didn't fear pain. They were conditioned to move through it, to fight despite it, to protect despite it. "Chase," she repeated more urgently. "Stop! You don't understand what you're provoking." "Oh, I understand," he spat, taking another step toward her. "You think you're special? You think you're untouchable because this demon dog listens to you?" Delta shifted, aligning its body with Zuri's leg, ready to intercept. Chase's grip tightened around the baton. "Oh, look," he mocked. "Your little monster is ready to kill for you. That's not normal, Zuri. That's not cute. That's dangerous." His voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "And I'm about to expose you for what you really are." He raised the baton higher. Delta barked a sound so explosively violent that half the crowd screamed and stumbled backward. The dog lunged forward a full step, claws gouging the concrete, teeth bared, eyes locked on the weapon. Chase nearly dropped the baton. His hand shook visibly now, tremors spreading from his wrist to his elbow. Sweat dripped down his temple, gathering along his jaw. But he couldn't back down. Not in front of the cameras, not in front of the school, not in front of Zuri. His voice wavered as he yelled, "Stay back!" But Delta wasn't listening to him. It never had. The dog took another step, measured, controlled, lethal. Chase stumbled backward, bumping into a student who shoved him off. "Get away from me, dude! You're the one bringing weapons!" Chase regained his balance, but barely. He pointed the baton wildly, electricity crackling with every jitter of his wrist. Zuri's voice tightened. "Chase, if you get too close to me, Delta won't wait for you to swing. It will take you down." "Oh, really?" Chase sneered, though terror shimmered plainly beneath his words. "Let's find out." He took one step toward her. Delta erupted forward. The dog didn't bite, didn't even make contact, but the speed alone was enough to send Chase reeling backward in panic. He tripped over a metal grate, nearly falling onto the electrified baton. The rooftop exploded with shouting. "Chase, stop! Put the weapon down! He's going to get himself killed. Someone record this. This is insane." But the live stream was already capturing it perfectly. The bully armed with a stun baton, trembling, facing off against a federal-trained K-9 who refused to yield. The wind intensified, howling through the cracks in the rooftop, rattling doors, and shaking metal signs. The world felt unstable, seconds away from exploding. Chase's breath came in ragged bursts as he backed into the railing. Zuri stepped forward involuntarily. "Please don't make this worse." "Worse?" Chase choked out. "You think I'm making this worse? You and your psycho dog?" Delta surged again, barking with such force that Chase nearly collapsed. "Holy!" Mason exhaled. "Dude, it's only reacting to Chase. It doesn't care about anyone else." Troy nodded, fear widening his eyes. "It knows he's the threat." The realization sank across the crowd like a dark, heavy wave. Delta wasn't out of control. Delta wasn't unpredictable. Delta wasn't rabid. Delta was choosing who to defend, choosing who to attack, choosing sides. Zuri's side. That truth burned Chase from the inside out. He tightened his grip on the baton until his knuckles turned white. His knees wobbled, but he forced them straight. He couldn't look weak. He couldn't let them see him break. He couldn't lose, not here, not now. Even if the dog terrified him. Even if Zuri's calm unsettled him. Even if the entire school was watching his downfall live. He swallowed hard, electricity buzzing dangerously near his face. "I'm not scared," he lied, lips trembling. But he was, and everyone could see it. Even Delta. Especially Delta. The dog stepped forward again slowly this time, deliberately, lowering its head like a seasoned soldier, preparing for an unavoidable clash. Chase's hand shook so violently that the baton crackled erratically, the electric arcs spitting out in broken bursts. Zuri looked at him with something almost like pity. It pushed him over the edge. "Screw all of you," he growled. "If no one else will stop her, I will." He raised the baton high, and then a new voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Strong, authoritative, unmistakably trained. "Step away from that girl." Every head snapped toward the rooftop entrance. A silhouette stood there. Broad shoulders, dark uniform, federal insignia glinting under the gray light. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered the words that shifted the story into a new dimension. "Is that a federal officer?" With a federal presence suddenly entering the scene, the rooftop standoff is about to escalate from a school incident to something far bigger, something national. The rooftop door didn't just open, it exploded inward with a metallic crash that ricocheted off every concrete surface. The sound cut through the chaos, sharper than Delta's growl, sharper than Chase's shouting, sharper even than the electric crackle of the stun baton. A rush of cold air blasted across the rooftop, and then came the voice. "Stop right there!" Not the federal officer Chase imagined, but Miss Dalton, the strictest teacher at Riverside High and head of the science department, storming onto the rooftop with 2 security guards on her heels. Her normally controlled expression was a storm of fury and disbelief. Students parted instinctively, creating a clear path like Moses splitting the sea. Miss Dalton's eyes landed first on Chase, the stun baton in his shaking hand, the electrified prongs still glowing blue. Delta crouched between him and Zuri like a lethal shadow. But when her gaze finally locked onto Delta, her face drained of color. "Oh, God!" she breathed. "No, no, 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 what have you all done?" The guards froze behind her. The students stiffened. Chase blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Miss." Dalton did not answer him. She strode forward, voice rising into a furious scream that shook the rooftop rails. "Delta is federally coded! Who opened its cage?" Gasps surged through the crowd like a wave. A hush fell. A terrifying, breath-stealing hush. Chase felt it hit him like a punch. This wasn't just a dangerous dog. This wasn't just a school security animal. This was a federal canine unit with a federal chip, the kind of animal that only specialized handlers, government-level, training certified, were allowed to command or even approach. "Wait, what?" a girl whispered. "Delta's federal? That means it's government property. Dude, Chase is dead. No, forget dead. He's going to prison." "Miss." Dalton spun toward the crowd, her voice shaking with the severity of the situation. "That dog is not supposed to be touched. It is not a school animal. It is not a local unit. It belongs to a federal training division. Delta carries a Level 3 federal behavioral chip. If that dog attacks or gets harmed, federal agencies will get involved." Her voice cracked at the end, not from fear of the dog, but fear of the consequences. All eyes swung to Chase. The baton in his hand flickered, casting nervous flashes across his pale face. You can't be serious," he stammered. "It's just a dog. It is not just a dog," Miss Dalton roared. Chase flinched. Around him, students whispered urgently. Oh my God, Chase messed with a federal K-9. He opened the cage. He could be charged with tampering with government property, and assault, and endangering a handler. But those whispers triggered something else. Something subtle, something chilling. Zuri. Her eyes widened, not with fear, not with shock, but with recognition. A deep, quiet recognition that she couldn't hide even if she tried. She stared at Delta. Not the growling beast protecting her, but the collar. The metal plate on the leather strap glinted under the gray light. Beneath the serial code, beneath the property of Federal K-9 Division, was a small, engraved marking. Only certain people would understand. RH Unit 7. A symbol, a signature, a world she thought she had left behind forever. "Miss." Dalton caught the look on her face. You recognize that chip, don't you?" she said slowly. Zuri swallowed hard. Chase's head whipped toward her. "You what?" Students closed in again, sensing something seismic building beneath the surface. Miss Dalton stepped forward, voice still sharp. "You know what that unit marking means. No ordinary student would." She stopped in front of Zuri. "Who trained you to identify federal chips?" Zuri didn't speak, but her silence said enough. Chase stared at her as if she'd sprouted horns. "No," he said under his breath. "No, you're lying. There's no way." "Miss." Dalton didn't let him finish. "That particular chip, Level 3 behavioral conditioning, belongs exclusively to the Rowan Division of Federal K-9 Operations." More whispers exploded. "Rowan? As in Captain Rowan? That's like one of the top federal handlers in the country. His units are used in national cases." Chase felt a cold spike of dread pierce down his spine. He glanced from Zuri to Delta, to the serial marking, to her again. A horrifying idea began taking shape. He stepped back. "No, no, there's no way you." Zuri didn't look angry. She didn't look smug. She didn't even look proud. She looked tired, deeply, painfully tired, as if she had been running from a truth that had finally caught her. She whispered, barely audible, "My father trained Delta." The rooftop detonated into chaos. Screams, gasps, shouts. Phones jerked wildly as dozens of students tried to capture the bomb that had just dropped. Even Miss Dalton staggered. You're Captain Rowan's daughter?" Zuri nodded once. A small motion, a quiet motion, but one that changed everything. Chase's knees nearly buckled. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no, this isn't happening." Students murmured. Chase messed with a federal dog. Trained by her dad, he released it. He attacked her with a stun baton. He's finished. He's beyond. Finished. The wind slammed a metal sign against the cage with a deafening clang, jolting Chase back into the present. Delta growled, stepping forward again, head low, body tense, still choosing Zuri, still protecting her. Chase's voice cracked as he whispered, "I messed with the wrong girl." Miss Dalton pointed at him sharply. "Security! Detain him!" But she didn't get to finish, because something in Zuri shifted. Something subtle. Something dangerous. She stepped forward not toward Chase, but toward the truth she had been hiding for years. Her voice was steady now. "Controlled. Let them hear it from me," she said quietly. "Since Chase wants to tell everyone I'm dangerous, maybe it's time they knew what I really am." Every head turned. The wind paused. Delta lifted its head, and Chase felt his stomach drop into his shoes. Zuri is about to reveal the first piece of her secret, a truth that will flip the rooftop power dynamic upside down and leave Chase with nowhere left to run. The last light of day bled across the rooftop, turning the sky a bruised purple. The automatic security lamps flickered on one by one, casting long, trembling shadows across the concrete. The rooftop, once a forgotten training space, now felt like an arena, a stage, a place where truth demanded to be spoken. Zuri stood at the center of it. Delta sat beside her, posture alert but controlled, its chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The dog remained glued to her like iron filings to a magnet driven not by fear, not by chaos, but by loyalty. A loyalty Chase Weston never anticipated. Miss Dalton waited, lips pressed into a white-knuckled line. The two security guards hovered cautiously near the door. The crowd of students, dozens of them, held their phones silently, screens glowing in the dim light. And Chase looked like he was watching his whole life crumble beneath his feet. His hands shook. His breath came in shallow bursts. His eyes darted from Zuri to Delta, to the students recording every second. He looked small for the first time, small and dangerously desperate. Zuri inhaled slowly. Her voice came out soft, steady, carrying a weight she had spent years trying to bury. "I know this dog," she said quietly. "I've known Delta since he was a puppy." A stunned silence rolled across the rooftop, swallowing every other sound. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Miss Dalton blinked. You trained him?" Zuri nodded. "From the time he could barely walk," she added. "Before he was assigned to a unit, before he had a chip, before he became Delta." Gasps erupted in pockets around the crowd. "What? No way. She trained a federal dog? Doesn't that mean she Miss?" Dalton finished the sentence for them, voice barely above a whisper. "It means she's part of a federal K-9 lineage." Students stared at Zuri, as if seeing her for the first time. Chase tried to laugh, but the sound cracked in half, hollow and hysterical. "Bullshit," he spat weakly. "You're nobody. Just some quiet little whatever you are." Zuri didn't react. Delta did. The dog growled, deep and low, a growl that made Chase snap his mouth shut instantly. Miss Dalton stepped closer, eyes narrowing at the collar. "If she really trained Delta, that means she's certified in handling Level 3 federal K-9 units. That certification is only given to, she hesitated, to government agents, to federal officers, to elite trainers, to families like the Rowans." Zuri finished the sentence calmly. "To my father's division." The rooftop shook with the collective gasp. Chase's face drained of what little color remained. "No," he said softly. No, you're lying. You're trying to make me look worse?" a boy muttered. "Pretty hard to look worse than attacking a federal dog with a stun baton." The crowd pressed closer. Miss Dalton swallowed. "You're Captain Rowan's daughter." Zuri nodded once. Phones shook in students' hands as they tried to capture every second. Delta remained perfectly still, except for its tail, which tapped once against the floor when Zuri spoke. Chase stared at the dog, stared at her, stared at the students filming him. "You expect me to believe," he said, voice trembling, "that you, some random new girl, are connected to one of the highest-ranking K-9 commanders in the country? Zuri's eyes were calm. Too calm. You should have thought about that before you opened Delta's cage. His knees weakened. His hand loosened around the stun baton until it clattered silently to the floor. Delta didn't move, not even to flinch at the sound. Its discipline was absolute, and now everyone understood exactly what that meant. Wait, a girl whispered uneasily. Federal K-9s aren't allowed to obey random students. Yeah. A boy agreed. They only respond to people in the system. So, if Delta's obeying her, the girl finished the thought, then she's not lying. A tremor crawled down Chase's spine. Zuri's presence, the stillness, the certainty, the familiarity with the dog, it all clicked into place in his collapsing mind. She wasn't a mystery. She wasn't a fluke. She wasn't lucky. She was trained. A federal bloodline handler. He backed away until he hit the railing, breath stuttering. You, he whispered, voice shaking uncontrollably. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be at this school. Zuri tilted her head slightly. And you're not supposed to be endangering federal property. The security guards exchanged wide-eyed looks. Miss, Dalton exhaled sharply. Chase, what you've done today is beyond bullying. You tampered with a federally tagged K-9, assaulted a student, brandished a weapon, and endangered a handler. Chase's expression contorted in panic. I didn't know, he cried, voice cracking. How was I supposed to know she was? Zuri cut him off gently. You didn't need to know. You just needed to not be cruel. Silence fell so hard, it felt like the entire rooftop bowed under its weight. Delta rose from its sitting position, not aggressively, but solemnly, and pressed its head against Zuri's hand. Not for comfort, for recognition, for allegiance. Students stared, breath held hostage by the surreal sight. Troy whispered, Dude, that dog only does that for federal handlers. I've seen training videos. That's a level of loyalty you can't fake. Mason nodded slowly. It's her dog, not the school's. Chase's world crumbled. His voice came out thin, reedy, desperate. What are you? Zuri met his eyes. For the first time, she didn't look afraid. She looked like someone who had spent years trying to hide a part of her life and had finally stopped running. I'm someone with a family you should never have crossed. The words sank into Chase like anchors tied to his ribcage. Miss Dalton whispered, This is about to get very serious. Chase suddenly jerked backward, snapping out of his paralysis. His fight-or-flight instincts surged, and there was no fight left in him. He chose flight. He spun toward the rooftop exit. Students gasped and moved aside as he shoved through them, tripping over backpacks, stumbling over stray debris. One of the guards reached for him, but Chase dodged wildly, fueled by raw panic. He wasn't thinking about punishment. He wasn't thinking about consequences. He was thinking about escape. Escape from the girl he thought was powerless. Escape from the dog he thought was Rabid. Escape from a truth bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Zuri watched him run not with satisfaction, not with vengeance, but with the quiet certainty of someone who already knew. There was nowhere left for Chase Weston to run. Driven by fear and desperation, Chase attempts to flee the rooftop only to discover that the consequences of crossing a federal K-9 lineage have already closed in around him. Chase tore through the rooftop crowd like a hunted animal, shoving students out of his way, with wild, panicked force. Backpacks toppled, phones flew, bodies staggered. Some students cursed at him, others scrambled to avoid becoming collateral damage. But Chase didn't hear any of it. His heartbeat drowned everything out, pounding loud and frantic in his skull. He hit the metal door to the stairwell so hard it bounced off the wall. The hinges screeched as he stumbled inside, sweaty palms slipping on the railing as he lurched downward. Chase! Stop! Miss! Dalton shouted behind him. He didn't. He couldn't. He had crossed too many lines. And Zuri wasn't just some quiet black girl anymore. She was federal bloodline, a handler, a Rowan, a name that meant consequences. Chase's breath tore from his lungs as he bounded down the first flight, feet slamming against metal steps. His mind raced faster than his legs. I have to get out, I have to get out, I have to. A silhouette flashed at the landing below. Security, Weston. The guard barked. Don't take another step. But Chase didn't slow. He lowered his shoulder and rammed into the guard with pure, terrified momentum. The man stumbled, grabbing the railing to keep from falling. Students at the rooftop entrance gasped. Bro, he just shoved security. Chase is done. He's actually losing his mind. Mason and Troy froze at the top of the stairwell, phones still recording, eyes wide with disbelief. They had expected drama, but not this. Not a full meltdown. Chase, Mason yelled. Dude, stop. Chase refused to acknowledge him. Shame, fear, and humiliation twisted together, tightening around his throat like a noose. If he could just reach the bottom floor, if he could slip out a back door, if he could disappear. A growl thundered from behind him, a growl he would recognize anywhere now. He whipped his head around just in time to see Delta bursting into the stairwell, muscles coiled, eyes locked, breath pumping like a war engine. Students screamed, "The dog is coming down! Move!" Even the guard scrambled aside, pressing himself against the wall. Delta descended the stairs like a predator in silent pursuit, no barking, no snapping, no wasted motion. Chase's panic spiked so sharply it almost made him dizzy. Oh God, stay away!" he screamed, stumbling down another flight. Delta closed the gap effortlessly, claws clacking against the metal, posture low and deadly. But even as the dog gained ground, it didn't strike, didn't pounce, didn't snap. It was waiting for one voice. She appeared at the top of the stairwell, breath steady, eyes locked on the chaos below. The crowd swarmed behind her, filming everything, every breath, every misstep, every ounce of Chase Weston's unraveling. "Zuri!" Chase screamed, voice cracking into pieces. Call it off right now!" Zuri didn't rush, didn't shout, didn't look panicked. She simply walked down one step, then another, then another. Delta slowed its pace in perfect sync with her. The dog didn't look at Chase. Its eyes were fixed on her, awaiting direction like a soldier awaiting orders. Chase tripped on the edge of a stair, hitting the ground hard. He scrambled backward on his hands, shoes scraping metal. "Please!" he cried. "Please! Make it stop!" A guard reached toward Chase. "Stay still, don't provoke it." Chase slapped his hand away, tears streaming down his face. "Don't touch me!" Delta prowled closer, ready to intercept. Students recorded from every angle. This is it, Chase thought. This is where it ends. Zuri reached the midpoint landing, her silhouette framed by the stairwell's cold fluorescent light. "Delta," she said quietly. The dog froze instantly. Chase sobbed in relief, only for that relief to curdle into dread when he realized Delta hadn't backed off. It had simply paused, waiting for the next word, waiting for her. Zuri stared down at Chase, her expression unreadable. She stepped forward until she and Delta stood at the same level. Then she said the command, "Bleeb, stay." Delta halted mid-prowl, muscles still taut, eyes still locked on Chase but immobile. A coiled spring held by a single word. Students gasped. "Holy crap," she stopped it with whisper volume. "That's next-level control." Chase's chest heaved as he stared at the dog. "Why? Why would you stop?" "And it," he choked. Zuri stepped closer, her voice low and razor-sharp. "Because I don't need Delta to catch you." Chase blinked. "What? What?" Zuri descended another step until she stood directly above him, Delta still motionless behind her. "I don't need a dog to chase you down," she said softly. "I don't need it to expose you. I don't need it to show people who you really are." She held his gaze steady, unblinking, unafraid. "You did that part all by yourself." Chase's mouth quivered. "Zuri, please." "No," she said, her voice suddenly dropping into a tone that carried more authority than anything he'd ever heard from her. "You ran because you're guilty. You attacked me because you're cruel. You opened that cage because you wanted to prove you could break someone. Her next step brought her eye level with him. But I want you to face what you've done, not run from it. Her words carved through him. I want you to face the truth yourself. Delta growled softly, not from aggression, but from agreement, as if echoing her sentiment. Chase's breath caught painfully. He looked between Zuri and the dog, and his heart quaked with a new kind of terror. She wasn't threatening him. She wasn't raising her voice. She wasn't even angry. She was telling the truth, and somehow that was worse. Much worse. His legs finally gave out. He slumped against the wall, fingers trembling uncontrollably. Miss. Dalton reached the landing, a guard beside her, and looked down at Chase Weston with something between disappointment and disbelief. Chase, she said firmly, don't move. Security is taking you back to the office. Chase stared at her, stunned, helpless, destroyed. He had run to escape consequences. But consequences had followed him, and consequences wore a K-9 badge and a Rowan bloodline. Cornered, humiliated, and half-broken. Chase is about to face the moment that shatters the last illusion he still believes he controls. The hallway outside the stairwell was eerily empty, stripped of the rooftop chaos but heavy with the echo of everything that had just happened. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like they were nervous too. Chase stumbled forward, dragged between two security guards, his breath shaky and irregular. His shirt was drenched in sweat. His eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape that no longer existed. Zuri followed behind him, calm but unyielding, Delta walking at her side like a silent shadow. The dog's presence alone kept Chase from making another desperate run for it. He reached the intersection of two deserted hallways and snapped. Turning toward Zuri, he screamed, "This isn't fair! You're setting me up! You're all setting me up!" One of the guards tightened his hold. "Keep your voice down." "No, you don't understand," Chase shouted, voice cracking. She told the dog to attack me. She opened the cage. Zuri cut him off without raising her voice. "No, Chase, you did all of that." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, the live stream still open. The comments were exploding. The viewer count was climbing. The timeline marked every second. Chase froze. "No," he whispered. "Turn that off." Zuri didn't. She held the phone up, letting the guards and security feed see everything. Chase unlocking Delta's cage. Chase shoving her backward. Chase laughing. Chase bragging. Chase swinging the stun baton. His own voice filled the empty hallway. "Let's see what this dog does when it's hungry." Chase's face collapsed. "Stop. Please. Delete it. Please delete it." But Zuri wasn't done. She stepped toward the nearest school camera mounted on the ceiling, glowing red. "You want the truth?" she said quietly. "Here it is." The guard tapped his radio. "Control room. Confirm camera feed for hallway C2. A voice crackled through the walkie-talkie. "C2 feed active. Recording shows Chase Weston initiating aggression, fleeing scene, and resisting detainment." Chase crumpled. His knees hit the floor with a dull thud. "No, no, no, this isn't happening. This isn't." His voice morphed from pleading to vicious. "This is your fault. You think you're better than me? You think you can ruin my life? Because you have some dog and some federal daddy?" The guards jerked him upright, but he kept screaming, spit flying from his lips. "I'll sue your whole family. I'll make your life a nightmare, you hear me? Your life." Delta stepped forward with a low, dark growl. Chase shut up instantly. His chest heaved, sweat dripped from his hair. His eyes, once arrogant and superior, now shook with cornered animal terror. "Please," he whispered. "Zuri, don't let them take me. Please." Zuri didn't respond. She didn't need to, because at that exact moment, before she could speak, before the guards could move, before Chase could beg again, the school's PA system crackled to life. A high-pitched whine, a burst of static. Then, "Attention faculty and students, federal helicopter preparing to land on campus grounds." "Repeat, federal helicopter preparing to land." The hallway went silent, completely, terrifyingly silent. Then, all staff remain in designated positions. Federal K-9 Division inbound. Chase's skin turned the color of chalk. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The guard, holding his arm, stiffened. The other guard exchanged a glance that held real fear of the kind of authority that could suspend entire school systems with a phone call. Zuri stood perfectly still. Delta lifted its head, ears pricking toward the announcement. Recognizing the sound, the codes, the tone, Chase backed into the wall as if trying to merge with it. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. Tell me they're not coming here. Tell me this isn't about me." The PA clicked again. "Federal Transport, ETA. 90 seconds. Chase's knees buckled a second time, but this time the guard didn't help him up. He was beyond saving now. "Zuri," he croaked, eyes glassy with panic. "Tell them I didn't mean it. Tell them I didn't know. Tell them anything." Zuri looked at him, not with hatred, not with vengeance, but with the cold, unshakable clarity of someone who had told him the truth hours ago. "You didn't need to know. You just needed to not be cruel." The building vibrated faintly as rotors chopped the air above the school. The storm had arrived, and Chase Weston knew, in the deepest part of his shaking, collapsing mind, that the next person to walk through those doors would not be a teacher, not a guard, not a principal. It would be someone who trained dogs like Delta, someone who would demand answers, someone who did not tolerate cruelty, and someone who happened to be Zuri's father. Chase's jaw dropped open in silent horror. The helicopter lands, the Federal Division steps onto school grounds, and the man walking toward the building isn't just any officer. He is the commander of the nation's most dangerous K-9 units. The ground trembled before the helicopter even touched down. Students pressed against the windows lining the courtyard, phones raised, faces pale. Teachers spilled out of classrooms despite protocol. The wind kicked up leaves, dust, and loose worksheets as the massive Federal K-9 unit helicopter descended like a storm tearing open the sky. Its black metal body bore the unmistakable insignia, Federal K-9 Operations, Rowan Division. The rotors chopped the air in violent circles, flattening the grass and making everyone shield their eyes. Security officers stood frozen. Even the principal, Mr. Carmichael, usually calm and unfazed, looked as if gravity itself had shifted beneath his feet. Inside the hallway, Chase trembled so hard, the guard holding him had to tighten his grip. "They're not here for me," he whispered. "They can't be here for me." "Tell me they're not here for me, please." No one answered, because everyone knew the truth. Zuri stood silently beside Delta, who was suddenly alert, chest swelling with anticipation. The dog's ears pricked forward, nose testing the air. He recognized the sound, the vibration, the scent cutting through the wind. His handler was here, his real handler, and that meant only one thing. The helicopter's door swung open. Out stepped Captain Rowan, broad-shouldered, commanding presence, uniform immaculate, Federal badges gleaming in the dying light, jaw sharp as a blade, eyes the same deep brown as Zuri's steady, assessing, impossible to read. He didn't walk, he strode, each step heavy with purpose, power, and raw authority. Students watching from the windows didn't dare breathe. The guards instinctively straightened their posture. Even the helicopter crew stepped back, as if the ground itself belonged to him. Delta couldn't wait another second. The dog bolted across the courtyard, with a burst of speed so explosive that teachers screamed. Captain Rowan didn't flinch. He simply opened one arm, bracing himself, and Delta leapt into his chest with a whine so emotional it cut through the chaos like a scalpel. The dog buried its head against him, tail whipping, entire body vibrating with relief and worship. Captain Rowan pressed a firm hand to its neck. His first words weren't dramatic, they weren't loud, but they made Chase's heart stop. "Good boy, Delta. I'm here." He gave the dog a final pat before lifting his gaze toward the school building. His eyes hardened. "Where is my daughter?" The guards nearly tripped over themselves, guiding him inside. Zuri waited near the end of the hallway, back straight, hands clasped behind her. She looked smaller next to the overwhelming authority her father carried with him, but also stronger, like she had finally stepped into the part of herself she had tried to hide. When Captain Rowan saw her, the rigidness in his eyes softened for just a moment. "Zuri, Dad." He pulled her into a brief, grounding embrace. Delta circled them protectively, tail thumping the floor. Then Rowan's gaze snapped to Chase. Chase staggered backward instinctively. Captain Rowan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone carried enough weight to crush concrete. Who opened Delta's cage? No one dared speak. The hallway was silent except for Chase's breath hitching in his throat. Rowan stepped closer, boots echoing. "I said," he repeated. "Who opened the cage?" The principal cleared his throat. "Captain Rowan, we were gathering statements, there's a live stream, several camera angles," but Rowan didn't blink. "I didn't ask for reports. I asked for a name." His eyes locked onto Chase like steel locking onto a target. Zuri stood beside her father. Delta pressed into her leg, the scene painting an unmistakable picture. Federal lineage, federal dog, federal consequences. Chase felt everything crumble. His knees weakened. His throat dried. His mind scrambled for excuses, lies, anything, but every path led straight into the federal officer's stare. I didn't mean to," Chase stammered. "That isn't what I asked," Rowan said, stepping closer. "Did you open Delta's cage?" Chase's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Rowan's voice dropped lower, dangerously controlled. "You released a Level 3 federal K-9 unit without authorization. You endangered a handler, my daughter. You used a weapon in the vicinity of a federal animal. And you attempted to flee." Chase let out a breathless sob. "I didn't know," he cried, shrinking backward. I didn't know she was connected." To Rowan's expression hardened. "You don't have to know her lineage to know cruelty is wrong," Delta growled softly, picking up Rowan's shift in tone. Chase's legs finally gave out. He collapsed to the cold tile floor, tears streaming, fear consuming every fiber of his being. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Captain Rowan didn't look moved. He wasn't here for apologies. He was here for truth. His next command split the hallway like lightning. "Stand him up." The guards yanked Chase to his feet. Rowan stepped close enough that Chase could feel the cold federal insignia on his uniform. "Now," Rowan said, voice quiet but deadly, "tell me who opened Delta's cage." Chase's answer trembled out of him, broken, terrified, unavoidable. And Zuri watched, knowing. The confession was only the beginning. Chase's long-awaited confession triggers a chain of consequences that no apology can undo, and now he must face the federal weight of everything he's done. The principal's office was suffocatingly quiet, not the usual, administrative quiet, the kind filled with paperwork rustling and distant announcements, but a heavy, deathly stillness that settled into the walls and pressed onto every chest in the room. The blinds were half-drawn, slicing sunlight into thin, trembling stripes across the carpet. The faint hum of the school's HVAC system rattled like nervous breathing. Chase Weston sat hunched in a metal chair, wrists trembling, face blotchy from crying. His Letterman jacket lay crumpled on the floor beside him like shed skin, useless now, stripped of its power. Zuri stood near the window, hands folded before her, Delta sitting obediently at her heel. The dog's eyes never left Chase, not in aggression, not in threat, in judgment. Captain Rowan stood behind the principal's desk, not sitting, not relaxing, standing, towering. His uniform absorbed the room's weak light, making him seem carved out of shadow. Principal Carmichael sat stiffly, fingers interlocked, trying to appear composed, though sweat clung to his temple. Rowan didn't waste time. He didn't warm up. He didn't soften. He didn't dance around the point. He stepped forward until the polished badge on his chest glinted directly into Chase's hollow eyes and said, "Did you try to kill my daughter using a federal K-9?" The question detonated in the room like a bomb. Chase's face drained of what little color remained. His lips parted uselessly. His breath caught somewhere between a sob and a gasp. I didn't. I wasn't trying to," he stammered. Rowan leaned in slightly. "Answer the question." Chase burst into tears. "I swear I didn't mean to. I thought the dog wasn't that serious. No one told me it was federal. No one told me it was dangerous." Rowan's voice remained cold. "Delta is dangerous only to threats. He didn't attack any other student. He didn't attack faculty. He only reacted to you." Chase shook violently. I didn't know what it would do. I just wanted to scare her, okay? I wasn't trying to kill anyone." "Scare her?" Rowan echoed slowly. "By releasing a trained attack dog? By locking her on a rooftop? By brandishing a weapon in her face?" Chase sobbed louder. Zuri didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply watched him unravel, watched the boy who tried to destroy her choke on the truth he had created. Chase frantically pointed at her. She made the dog listen. She commanded it. She knows German. She was controlling it. I swear she was trying to make me look bad. I swear." Principal Carmichael sighed heavily. "Chase, the live stream shows otherwise. No, it's edited. It's fake. Someone spliced it to make me look." Rowan slammed a hand onto the desk. The wood shook. Chase screamed and curled inward. "You attacked my daughter," Rowan said, voice low enough to suffocate. "You endangered Delta. You lied to faculty. You resisted security. You threatened a federal animal with a stun weapon. And now you're sitting here blaming her?" Chase's voice cracked. She knows how to make the dog listen. She's not normal. Zuri finally spoke. "Enough. Just one word." But it stopped Chase mid-breakdown. She stepped forward, face steady, posture controlled. "You don't get to hide behind lies anymore," she told him softly. "Everyone saw what happened. Everyone saw what you chose to do." Chase shook his head frantically. No, you don't understand. If people find out I did this, my parents, my future, your future," Zuri repeated. "What about mine?" Chase froze. "What about every girl you tormented before me?" She pressed. "What about the students you humiliated? What about the ones who transferred schools because of you? What about the people you hurt just because you thought you could?" Chase's chin quivered. He looked at her like a drowning man looking at the shore, but one he had burned himself. Principal Carmichael adjusted his glasses, voice heavy. "Chase, we have years of complaints about your behavior. We overlooked too much. Today proves we were wrong to," Chase snapped. "This isn't fair," he shrieked. "You're taking her side because her dad is federal. If she was just some nobody," Rowan cut in. "She is not some nobody. She is a citizen, a student, a young woman you tried to harm. Her value is not tied to my badge, just as your value is not saved by your last name." Chase collapsed into the chair, sobbing hard enough to choke. Rowan took a step closer. His voice became quiet, almost gentle. "Almost. But I'm not here because of who she is," he said. "I'm here because of what you did." Chase squeezed his eyes shut, shaking uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," he croaked. "I'm so sorry. Please don't press charges. Please don't ruin my life. I didn't know what I was doing, I swear. Zuri watched the boy who never apologized to anyone now, spilling tears onto a floor he once walked like a king. But no one reached to comfort him. No one believed him. No one defended him. Not anymore. Principal Carmichael folded his hands. "Chase Weston, until federal authorities determine the full scope of consequences, you are hereby suspended, detained, and barred from campus grounds." Chase's breath hitched. "No," he whispered. Rowan straightened to full height, and with the final crack of a father's fury and a commander's authority, he said, "No one in this room believes you anymore." End quote. Now that Chase's collapse is complete, the next step is unavoidable. Consequences federal, social, and personal are about to rain down. The school board conference room had never been so crowded. Students who filed complaints, parents who demanded answers, teachers who once turned a blind eye, and now 2 federal investigators seated at the end of the long oak table, their badges glinting beneath the fluorescent lights. Chase Weston sat in the center of the room, flanked by the vice principal and a trembling attorney who had clearly not been prepared for the magnitude of damage control required today. His hands shook violently. His eyes were hollow. His confidence, once loud and unbreakable, had been stripped bare. Zuri sat quietly near the back, Delta at her feet. The dog's presence alone kept the room grounded, its calm posture a stark contrast to the storm unraveling in front of them. The chairwoman of the school board cleared her throat. The meeting regarding the actions of student Chase Weston is now in session. We will also be hearing testimony from other students who have filed additional reports. Chase's head snapped up, panic flaring in his eyes. "Additional what?" he whispered. His attorney touched his arm. "Stay quiet." Too late. The first student stood, a girl with a fading bruise along her jawline. She clutched a crumpled piece of paper but didn't need it. Her voice carried years of bottled fear. "Last semester," she said, staring directly at Chase. "He cornered me in the gym locker room and told me if I didn't shut my mouth about the way he treated other students, he'd make sure I remembered my place. He shoved me against the metal lockers so hard I couldn't breathe." Murmurs rippled across the room. Chase squeezed his eyes shut. "No, that's—" he tried to protest. His attorney grabbed his arm hard enough to bruise. "Do not speak." Another student stood, a boy from the robotics team, hands trembling slightly. "He stole my project and smashed it against the wall. Said I shouldn't be wasting school money on nerd toys. I didn't report it because—" he swallowed. "Because he was Chase Weston." A parent rose next. "My daughter transferred schools last year. She never told me why, until this morning. He bullied her every day during lunch, called her racist names, mocked her hair, her skin, and the school did nothing." Chase shook his head violently, tears flying. "Those are lies," he gasped. "They're trying to make me look worse." "Worse!" Another parent snapped. "You terrorized half the school." More voices rose. More testimonies. More wounds ripped open. A sophomore girl, shaking so hard she had to be supported by a friend. "He filmed me changing during practice. Said he'd leak it if I didn't cooperate." A boy with a cast on his arm. "He pushed me down the stairs last year. It wasn't an accident. A quiet kid from the library. He'd hold lighters under my backpack, just to watch me panic. An exhausted teacher. I reported his behavior 3 times. Administration ignored it because of his family influence." Chase's attorney finally stood up. "The board must understand these are unverified claims." "No," one of the federal investigators interrupted, voice calm but cold. "We've already reviewed corroborating evidence. Videos, texts, witness accounts. Years' worth." Chase collapsed into his chair as if shot. His face dissolved into pure horror. "They're lying," he whispered, eyes darting wildly. "All of them, they're making this up, they're jealous." Delta lifted its head at the rising panic in his voice, but Zuri placed a calming hand on the dog's neck. Her eyes never left Chase. For the first time, he met her gaze not with hatred, not with superiority, but with shattered disbelief. How did you do this?" he whispered. "How did you turn everyone against me?" Zuri didn't move, didn't blink, didn't raise her voice. "You turned them against yourself," she said quietly. Her words hit him harder than the rooftop, harder than the stun baton, harder than the federal badge glinting across the room. The chairwoman spoke again, voice firm. "Based on the evidence presented, Chase Weston is hereby recommended for immediate expulsion pending federal review. Additionally, due to the involvement of a federal K-9 unit and attempted endangerment of a handler, the matter has been escalated to federal jurisdiction." Chase choked on his own breath. No, please." The federal investigator closed a folder. "Mr. Weston, you may face additional criminal charges. Today's hearing is not your final jurisdiction." Chase broke. Completely, utterly broke. His hands flew to his face as he sobbed loud, ugly. heaving cries that held nothing of the arrogant boy who once strutted through hallways like he owned them. The board members watched, with a mixture of exhaustion, sorrow, and grim justice. Some students cried, some trembled, some looked relieved. Zuri watched quietly. Because this wasn't triumph, it was truth. The truth that had followed Chase for years, gathering at his heels like a storm. And now it had finally arrived. The chairwoman folded her notes. This concludes the board's review. We will reconvene with federal officials for next steps. Chase didn't lift his head. He couldn't. Every lie he'd ever told, every threat he'd ever made, every cruelty he'd inflicted, had finally clawed its way into the light. Chase Weston didn't just fall. He crumbled under the weight of the truth, the testimonies, the evidence, and the consequences he never imagined would come for him. But even after all this, Zuri isn't finished. There is one final thing she must do, something only she can decide. The sun dipped low over Riverside High, bathing the courtyard in warm amber light. The chaos of the day had drained away, leaving the campus strangely quiet. No shouting students, no helicopter rotors, no trembling crowds, just long shadows, settling dusk, and the soft rustle of leaves dancing across the pavement. Zuri stood at the center of the courtyard, Delta resting calmly at her feet, his head against her thigh. His body was relaxed, but his eyes, sharp, alert, protective, never stopped scanning the space around them. Captain Rowan approached her slowly, the weight of the day evident in his measured steps. The man who had commanded entire units, who had trained dogs that tracked criminals across state lines, who never flinched in the face of danger, now looked at his daughter with something softer, something proud. He stopped a foot away. "Zuri," he said quietly, "there's one more thing we need to decide." She didn't look at him yet. Her gaze remained on the horizon, where the last fingers of sunlight kissed the rooftops. Rowan continued, voice steady but heavy. "What happens to Chase Weston?" Zuri closed her eyes briefly, feeling the air shift around her. She knew this moment was coming. She had prepared for every confrontation, every insult, every lie, every humiliation today brought. But this was the moment that would define her future, not Chase's. Rowan crossed his arms. "The federal officials will defer to your statement. Given what he did, endangerment, assault, attempted release of a federal K-9, you have the right to push for maximum charges. The system will follow your lead." Zuri finally looked up at him. "Dad," she asked softly, "what would you do if it were you?" Rowan didn't hesitate. "I would bury him legally," he said. "No deals. No mercy. He put my daughter in danger." Delta lifted his head at Rowan's tone, ears twitching. Zuri exhaled slowly. She understood her father. She loved her father, but she wasn't him. And Chase Weston, for all the cruelty he inflicted, for all the lies he spun, for all the danger he caused, was already destroyed. Emotionally, socially, morally, and soon legally. "Dad," she whispered, "look at him." Through the principal's office window, Chase sat slumped in a chair, head hanging, body shaking, his once flawless jacket torn, his eyes swollen, his entire posture collapsed. He wasn't a monster now. He was a boy who finally understood that cruelty has consequences. Zuri turned fully toward her father. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I don't need it." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "He almost killed you." "No," she replied. "He almost killed himself with the choices he made." Rowan studied her, expression unreadable. Zuri continued, her voice calm even. "I want the law to judge him. Not fear, not intimidation, not retaliation." She looked down at Delta, who nuzzled her hand with quiet loyalty. "I don't need this dog to scare him. I don't need my last name to crush him." Chase created his own punishment the moment he chose cruelty over decency. Rowan's jaw tightened, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You're saying," he murmured, "let the system do its job." Zuri nodded. "Yes, let the law handle him. I'm done giving him power over my thoughts, my life, my peace." Delta pressed his head against her leg again, as if confirming the choice. Rowan exhaled, the tension easing from his shoulders. "That's the woman your mother raised," he said quietly. Zuri smiled faintly. The moment was almost peaceful, until Rowan added, "There's still something you need to tell him, something only you can say." Zuri knew exactly what he meant. She stepped away from her father, Delta following at her heel. The last light of day framed her silhouette as she walked toward the principal's office door. Inside, Chase looked up as she entered, his eyes red, terrified, pleading. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled beneath him. "Zuri, please don't let them, please." She held up a hand. "Stop." He froze instantly. Delta sat beside her, calm and unreadable. Zuri stepped close enough that Chase could see the steadiness in her eyes. "You wanted to destroy me," she said quietly. "But you destroyed yourself." Chase burst into tears. "I'm sorry, I know," she said. "But sorry doesn't erase what you did to me, or to anyone else." He sobbed harder, shaking violently. Zuri crouched just slightly, not in sympathy, not in softness, but in honesty. "You're going to face consequences," she said. "Real ones, and I'm not going to save you." His breath hitched. "But listen carefully, Chase." Her voice sharpened, but never rose. "This is not revenge." Chase swallowed, confused. "This is accountability," she said. "And I won't carry your sins for you anymore." Delta's stare bored into Chase's collapsing courage. Zuri stood, her final words slicing through his world. "Remember this moment, Chase Weston, not because of what I did to you, but because of what you did to yourself." The boy broke again quiet, whole body sobbing. Zuri turned away. She didn't need anger. She didn't need fear. She didn't need power. She had peace. One final scene remains, a closing moment that seals Chase's fate and marks the beginning of Zuri's new chapter. The evening had settled into a cold quiet, the kind of stillness that makes sound travel farther, sting sharper, cut deeper. The police vehicle idled at the edge of the courtyard, its headlights slicing across the pavement in stark white beams. Chase Weston stood between two officers, wrists cuffed, shoulders collapsed inward, like a building losing its structure. Every step they guided him forward seemed to drain another piece of the boy he once was, the swaggering bully, the untouchable king of Riverside High, the one who believed no consequences could ever reach him. Now consequences were the only thing he could see. Students watched from distant windows, their faces ghostly behind the glass. Word had already spread across the entire school. No one could believe they were witnessing the fall of Chase Weston. But one person stood outside, the only one Chase feared to face. Zuri. She stood near the walkway, Delta sitting tall at her side. The dog didn't growl, didn't bark, didn't bare its teeth. It didn't need to. Its presence alone radiated a silent threat Chase felt in the marrow of his bones. As the officers led him toward the car, Chase's gaze flicked everywhere, desperately avoiding her. But as they opened the back door, he made the mistake of looking up. Their eyes met. Just once. Just long enough to break him again. Zuri didn't smirk. She didn't glare. She didn't look triumphant. She looked calm, peaceful, untouched by his chaos. That hurt him more than any scream ever could. Chase's chest tightened until it felt like his ribs were crushing his lungs. A sob escaped him, raw, uncontrollable. He tried to swallow it, but another followed, more violent, more panicked. He forced out her name like a plea. "Zuri, please." She didn't answer. Delta stood beside her, posture firm, eyes locked on Chase. The dog's stare wasn't aggressive, it was assessing, measuring, warning. A soldier evaluating a threat not worth engaging unless necessary. And yet, Chase felt the warning as clearly as if the dog had spoken aloud. "One more time. Just once more. And you will learn exactly how this ends." Chase's knees buckled. He clung to the doorframe as if the police car were the only thing keeping him from collapsing completely. The officers steadied him, but they didn't comfort him. He had forfeited sympathy long ago. Zuri simply held his gaze for a quiet moment, long enough for him to understand the truth. She wasn't afraid of him. She had never been beneath him, and she didn't need revenge. The truth had already done the job. When she finally spoke, her voice didn't cut. It closed. "Goodbye, Chase." Just 2 words. Soft. Even. Final. Chase shook his head desperately. Don't say it like that. Like you're done with me." "I am," she said. Delta's ears flicked, confirming it. A whimper tore from Chase's throat. It was the sound of someone realizing the world they built was made of paper, and today it burned down. The officers guided him into the back seat. His body shook with silent sobs until he could barely breathe. As they shut the door, he twisted in his seat for one last look, one last chance to cling to the illusion that he still held some fragment of power, but what he saw ended that illusion forever. Zuri stood in the golden wash of the police headlights, her silhouette framed by evening light. Her arms were relaxed, her shoulders steady, her expression calm, almost serene. And then, just before the car pulled away, she gave him something he never expected. A small smile, not mocking, not cruel, not victorious. A peaceful smile. A smile that said, "You can't hurt me anymore." Chase's entire body convulsed. He broke into sobs, so violent the officers exchanged worried glances. He pressed his forehead to the window, tears streaking down the glass, unable to tear his eyes from her as the car rolled forward. Delta watched him go with a gaze that promised protection, loyalty, and unspoken warning. Zuri lifted her hand, not waving, not taunting, simply acknowledging the end. An end she didn't win by force, or fear, or power. She won with truth. As the police vehicle turned the corner and disappeared into the fading light, Chase Weston realized something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. It wasn't the dog that terrified him. It wasn't the federal badge. It wasn't the consequences. It was the serenity on the face of the girl he tried to break, a serenity he could never erase, a serenity he would remember in nightmares. And with that, Zuri closed her chapter not with revenge, but with justice. This story ends not with fear, but with truth proof that real power comes not from intimidation, but from choosing integrity when the world expects rage. And just like that, the kid who thought he owned the school learned the one lesson he never expected. Fear doesn't make you powerful, truth does. The moment Zuri stepped forward, every lie he'd ever told, every cruel choice he'd ever made collapsed right on top of him. Now the only thing he has left is the memory of the girl he tried to break, standing stronger than he ever imagined. So tell me this. At which moment did you realize Chase was finished? If this story shook you even a little, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next one.